helps if I hit start, because that, you know, makes all the difference when you're streaming, is to make sure you actually are streaming. My alarm's going off, telling me that I am 5 minutes into the show. I think we're going to change the time of the show, and I'm going to roll it back just a smidget. Looks like we're good there. I'm going to check my sound levels. Sounds like my sound levels are good. So I'm going to turn that back down. And let's go, friends. Head on out to the barn. If you need to turn this on, because this is actually how I know I can come back later and check the chat. So let me there we go, loading up the chat on here. Awesome, good to go. So don't mean to be competing with Nathan today, but the chickens are hungry and they need food, so it is time to feed the chickens. So if you guys want to head over and listen to the calls on Nathan, I understand. That is perfectly fine. Today's show, we're just going to be talking a variety about some stuff. So I'm going to give it a few minutes, let some folks build up in here. Let some folks build up in here. Make sure you can't hear myself. I'm going to test something because I need to make sure that I got everything working. So we are going to do a test right like that. That test should mean everything is looking good on DLive. Everything is looking good there. This is up. Folks are good up there. Not sure why that's working like that. We'll see. I was trying something a little different. I'm just trying to get some stuff to work on here. So give it a second, guys, and I will be heading outside, just making sure that we're all good to go in all directions. Good to go there, good to go there. I think my sound is good. I don't know why my little scroll bar that I'm trying to get working isn't working. No worries, we don't need it today, friends, because it is a good day. And one other thing I need to fix. Streaming maintenance sometimes is so silly. Okay, that way I know who's getting on YouTube and everything else. Let me switch over so I can see myself on here, because that is how I know it doesn't lock up. Awesome, awesome. I shouldn't need it. Actually, I'm going to bring it just in case. Got my battery back up. Should not need it today. We should be good and hunky-dory, but just in case, it's never a bad thing to have extra juice. Okay. So friends, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I don't know where everybody's at, so all that good stuff. You get to look at the ceiling for a second. At least you get to look at the bottom of a cool plant. I need to put this in my pocket so that it doesn't fall out. That's why we're looking at the ceiling. Need audio to be fixed. So we're going to pop you here. Okay, audio should be up and working. We're going to do a test. I'm going to turn this up. Okay, I see some thingy-mabobs marking and jumping and such. So, okay. Seems like everything's audios on the X-Factor Firefly is working, so maybe we're good. Maybe? Can I get a confirmation on the X-Factor Firefly channel that we have audio? Because if not, I'm just going to restart it. Hey, Coffin, how are you? Can you hear me? It's good now? Okay, great. Awesome. So that means that I didn't absolutely break it, and we should be good to go. So now we're back heading outside, since I got the audio working again. I guess we'll just start an all-new stream again, since you didn't hear what I said. It's a beautiful day here in southern West Virginia. It's a little flat, little cloudy. The fog is rolling in. Let's peek up so you can see how this fog is rolling in. So you can see that the cell towers are starting to become invisible, and the fog is rolling in. Yeah, when I'm in the house, Coffin, the main reason, and if I'm saying your name wrong, I'm sorry. The main reason why I don't do a lot of streaming in the house during the day is because my parakeets are absolutely deafening. But I use them as when I start off in the house, and I try to use them to make sure that the sound is working when we first start. So that's one of the perks. I'm actually going to be trying to set up another little streaming office someplace else in the house very soon, so I can be doing some streaming, not just outside on my phone. Silly, silly ducks. Silly, silly ducks. So today, we are going to be talking about, out of the request of, well, mostly just coughing, because he's the one that had the most requests, is we are going to talk about my theory on human species, and I'm adding a asterisk to the end of that so that folks know what I'm actually referring to when I say human species. So I theorize, and nothing more than theorize. So I've nothing set in stone. It's not necessarily even a belief system. It's just something that I'm pondering and thinking about. I theorize that there are multiple subspecies of humans. And I am separating that different from breeds or from races. And I'm doing that for distinct reasons because of how the term species and subspecies work. So when I refer to humans, I might be using the term Homo sapien dot SPP as how I would actually type it in a proper scientific way. Dude, you're not supposed to be out. We got an escaped bunny. See, bunny escaped. This is not supposed to be an escaped bunny. You are supposed to be living in here. Okay, guys, get in there. Okay. So, and here's the thing. I'm not even going to go and separate humans necessarily on the color of their skin even per se. My theory onto this is, let's just recap. Let's start with an intro, and then I'll move backward, and then I'll move to the middle. So, I believe that there are in the vicinity of 5 to 7 different Homo sapien SPs, subspecies. I think that we do generally a good job of breeding together, but I do believe that there are some issues with our breeding, and there is some issues with our offspring that modern technology has solved, but in the past was a lot bigger deal. And how I break this down is I break this down into the two main forms. The first thing is I break down blood types, and then from blood types I break down to your RH, positive or negative. The RH, um, your RH charge and your whatever that anti thing is how I perceive the biggest issue. And I bring this up because we have things like, let's start with nature first. We have things like with ligers or tigons. And they are two distinctly different species that breed together that make a third. Or how donkeys and horses, or zebras and donkeys, or zebra and horses, how they can breed. And sometimes they can make completely viable offspring, and sometimes they don't. And then we also have one of the probably the easiest one with birds is there's the carrion crow and the hooded crow. They actually are considered two distinctly different species, but can cross mate, and then they also have an offspring that shows both of their traits. So what I'm saying, and the fundamental basis to my theory is blood type and blood charge are what separate us. I could be swayed on the blood type. So I could be convinced that maybe there is only two plus species of humans, and species as in the SP, where there's a lot of similarities, but there is enough of there's a slight enough of a difference. And I say that because without normal medical intervention, a negative blood type mother has a very, very tough time having a positive blood type child. And simply because of I brought a cheat sheet, so I'm going to cheat here. The RHLG, or the immune globulin, if it wasn't for that, the survival rate of those babies would be severely reduced. And we know this because we can look at the miscarriages and the such that happened prior to the 1960s, when we started doing shots and things of that sort. And so that is where I say that that's at the fundamental level is where the SPP comes from, is where the subspecies and where the slightly differentiates between the two species, or a slight mutation may form. Now that being said, there's also the antigenetic shifts that you get from like the influenza virus. And you see that with how the bird flu and the swine flu and how they affect humans, and we deal with it every season, especially this time of year with the flu, and how that can actually transfer the DNA from one species into another species and slowly manipulate it slightly a little bit. That could be playing a role that is outside of my current basic understanding. Now, the other thing that I have noticed, and I know this from folks that have mixed race children, is there can be issues when it comes to sickness and when it comes to certain types of things that they have to pay attention to. Like, for example, when you really break down your blood type, you'll see that there's a very long group of lists to your blood type. And it's not just you're not just like, for example, I'm A positive. So that's just we're covering very two small aspects of what we know about the blood type. If you really push it all the way out, you can find a lot of stuff. So in some cases with I'm just going to use the term mixed race for better terms right now. There are things that there are children that have issues with receiving blood from their parents or receiving blood because they got particular genetic markers from each one, and those genetic markers affect the way that their genes combined it, and so like it's harder to find the perfect match of blood type. And blood's probably a very bad example. More like a bone marrow, more things of that, more the bigger in-depth type things, or even things like with vaccinations and with other types of immunity boosters and such like that. Having folks that are not that having children that are okay, outbreeding depression, coughing. Um, I've lightly researched this matter. I'm building this on experience that I've had by talking with folks, experience I've had from raising chickens and seeing how interbreeding with them, and I know they have a completely different chromosome numbers than we do, but I'm basing this off of stuff that I've seen, stuff that I've read, and I'll be honest that this is still a working theory. It's still a working hypothesis. I should say a working hypothesis because we're not even at a theory yet. This is a working hypothesis that I've been doing, and I've been doing research to prove or disprove some of the ideas that I currently have. And right now I'm very much on the fence of a lot of stuff. So my working hypothesis leading to a theory is the multiple species slash subspecies type thing related similar to ligers, donkeys, the crows, and things of that sort. So that I'm still very fresh on this, and my mind can absolutely be changed because I have learned a long time ago to never set my mind solid on anything unless I have clearly observed it, tested it, and proved it out, because I think that there's lots of people with wonderful, great knowledge that can teach me more, and I can look at the studies and then try to repeat their studies, or look at their studies and see how I feel that they did. So and the SPP is what I'm referring to as a species polaris, or I'm not saying polaris right. Species polarisis. Yeah, well, and again, I'm going to go back that the idea of species is really kind of just a generic term. It just makes it easier to break it down, because I know like with trees and such, there's a lot of hybridization with trees, and they in turn get a slight variant because I can keep two trees really close, and their offspring are going to have mix of both of those. And I know humans were not trees, but I think that the reason I think that this is important to talk about is not to show supremacy or anything else, but if we're going to keep advancing in our medicine the way we're advancing in our medicine, and we're going to try to specialize medicine down to the individual and down to the family, I think that we need to just be honest on scientific terms about how distinctly different folks can be. Like, small little tangent over here I'm going to jump to. One of my biggest pet peeves is the fact that it's taken us so long that we give the same dose of medicine to a woman as we do a man, where certain medicines, based on simply your hormone levels that a man and a woman may have, that particular medicine can interact with those hormone levels and make things completely. Yes, and there is a medical difference for different races. And I think that is where I'm taking the word race a little bit further outside of like a breed or a race, and saying that there could be even enough differences to say that we are a multiple subspecies group that has hybridized, that has a lot of hybridization inside our species. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. I also think that as we learn more with epigenetics and how those get turned off and turned on, based on a variety of stuff, I think that there's more that we could learn from that. This is a really, we're just brushily, so I'm trying not to like dork out here with all the cool science stuff that I've read and stuff that is even some of the stuff that's way over my head, and just trying to really bring it down. A lot of the stuff I do, I really just want to bring it down so we're having a conversation that every single person will understand. Because I love to read scientific journals and I love to read a variety of stuff. Yes, there's absolutely a lot to learn, and I'm super excited, but the other important part of why I think talking about the subspecies is as we start making designer babies, and as we start making artificial wombs, and as we start doing three-parent children, because regardless if you like it or you don't like it, there are going to be people that's going to do it. Just as there's always going to be people that's going to learn to clone. And there's always going to be people that get in there and manipulate the DNA of their offspring so they're maybe don't get Alzheimer's, or manipulate it so they don't get that. That's what's going to happen. I'm being an absolute realist and not a moralist on this particular part. I'm accepting that that's going to happen. So if we get in here and we start manipulating the DNA, even more than what nature has manipulated the DNA, to the point where we will at some particular point be able to create a completely different species of human that may not even be able to breed with who we are today. And the reason I'm mentioning that and the reason I'm talking about that now is because I see the inevitable writing on the wall. Unless the reboot happens sometime within the next 50 years, we will be at that particular point. And if we don't start having the conversation of how different we are today, that will lead to bigger issues, which might even lead to like a class system and even bigger, more prejudiced issues that could be there in the future. So again, I'm honestly just working all this stuff out in my head, just really trying to explain it based on a very basic level. Coffin, I am super interested to any research or anything that you've had or any of your thoughts. If one day you're ever interested in calling in and us having more of a really strong, in-depth conversation about this, I would love to give you plenty of airtime to talk and hear what you have to say, because this interests me a whole lot. And as I said, I'm still working on my theory, but it's really fundamentally based on seeing different animals breed, breeding Muscovies and the mallard offspring ducks, the North American ducks and the South American ducks, which they actually have a completely different hatch rate. They actually have about a 3-day window where they hatch different. And so that's why a lot of the times those offspring won't survive, because that extra hatch rate varies a lot and can really change how certain things are developing and such like that. But I also think that there's something with humans, with the blood type. And so, like, I am A positive, my mom is A negative, and most everybody else in my family is O of some sort. I think most everybody is O positive. But my dad was also a blue baby, and there's also some weird things about how he pretty much had to have a blood transfusion when he was born, and he was born in 52. So there's stuff in our history, and there's stuff in my genetics that intrigues me. I also have in my genetics my grandfather's grandmother. So that would be my great 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 grandmother. My great 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 grandmother, she was a born in America slave. So she was born to, I don't know much about her parents. I don't know if they were brought over or anything of that sort. I'll have to call Frank back in a little bit. So I don't know much about that, but I do know that I have African lineage because of that, because we had relatives marry, because I had a great grandfather marry one of the house slaves or one of the offspring of the house slaves that were through my family lineage. So that is an interesting mix that I have into my family bloodline, and I think that that is something that is really interesting and important. And as you're saying about China, yes, China has no problem. They have no morals of what, and again, I'm not saying right or wrong with any of this. They have no morals into how they're going to play with DNA and how they're going to manipulate things. So we, as folks that are interested in this, need to have intelligent conversations and just be very, very, very honest with what we see and what we look at. Now, if we want to put our own judgment in it, that's one thing. But I am more interested in just talking about it and seeing where it's going and things of that sort. So, yeah, I don't need to cover this one. So, and I think that there could be more, especially now. I was just thinking about this, and this is a very slight tangent, but still dealing with this, especially with how antigenetic shift works and how it's used with viruses. That's pretty much how CRISPing and how genetically modifying engineering on a very, very basic level, that's how this works, and how nature has always done this with the influenza virus and being able to change and manipulate DNA and add things to our body through viruses and things of that sort. This intrigues me a lot because I wonder if the vaccinations that people choose to get or that they push also does some type of manipulating. And could they be doing this and trying to get a large group of people so that they can cover all the different types of folks that are out there? And so the elite can do as much research on it as possible so they can make the decision if they want to do this type of gene manipulation or not with humans and the silly among us that choose to get vaccinated for everyday illnesses, if that is something that they use, if that's something that they use um, to do that. So a conspiracy theory. So I'm not sure. I need some more clarification when you say it's a conspiracy theory, because there's a lot of stuff that is a conspiracy and not necessarily a conspiracy theory. Like, we know that the government has done gene manipulation or has at least given people certain viruses or certain illnesses, like the Tuscan Airmen and such, just to see how they could react and how their bodies and such would react to certain things. I think that's what AIDS was, or what we currently call AIDS. And I went and added a theory to that because some data has came out and proven that it's not a theory. It was just, they were just trying some experiments. Smallpox, as in like 80% of the folks that received that vaccination Okay, let's see if that fixes the issue. One day I need to address that in other ways, but today we will just leave it at that. So if Coffee, if you come back and you have anything that you would like to say, let me know. Sorry, connection there. That is sometimes what is silly about how I have my internet and how I have this set up, is it makes it harder for me to know what is connected and what is not. So yes. We'll go say hi to Lisa while I'm waiting for some people to repopulate back into the room after the silliness. Hope everyone is still enjoying themselves. What I need to do one day is get a regular moderator that can keep me on my toes to make sure that everything is going well. How's it going in here, Lisa? Was it the green scooper? Do you still need water? Okay. Hey, what's up, man? My internet was acting up for the last little bit, so if you're just catching up now and you missed the good portion of what was said, that's not a big deal because I think so did everybody else. So I was just having a good day on the farm, talking about my theory on how humans might be a handful of subspecies, mostly basing that on blood type and not necessarily based on race, but maybe that too. And when I say subspecies, I'm referring to things like ligers and mules and certain types of crows that can interbreed. And again, I'm not sold on this theory. It's more of a hypothesis based on my um, observing nature and the chickens and plants and things of that sort. So nothing set in stone, nothing hard. But the reason I think it's important that we talk about is because there will be in the future folks talking about designer babies and China and how they choose to manipulate DNA and how all that could be something to pay attention to. And it's best if we just have honest conversations about things like this. So soon, I'm gonna be getting one of those gimbal things, and that might actually help out, so it's not so feel like you're riding a roller coaster every time you or watching Blair Witch or watching Cloverfield every time you go on a. Yeah, the RF factor is the thing that is most intriguing to me. So my mom was Rh negative. I'm positive. My blood type. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if we can see it right there. My blood type is A positive. So, see right there, yep. My blood type is A positive. So, and my dad was a blue baby when he was born. He was born he was born in 1952, and so there's some speculations that he could have had a blood transfusion. Well, actually, he did have something like a blood transfusion when he was a baby, and that could have affected things too. So it's just, I don't know, it's all really interesting. I also have friends that have mixed race children, and there's been some issues that they've had when it comes to bone marrow, and we've talked about vaccines with them, and we've talked about how, we're just now starting with science to separate male and female when it comes to how much medicine we give based on, especially the medicine that can affect hormone levels and things of that sort. And there's probably far other aspects that are different between men and women that we're not focusing so much on medicine. And so I was simply saying that if we talk about this and we talk about that humans could be multiple subspecies, or we could be different species altogether, having these honest conversations can help weed out if it's true, if it's not true, or if some variant happens. Because I still think that in the future, as we're manipulating our DNA more and we do focus more on CRISPR and designer babies and folks that are going to try to become transhumanists, that all intrigues me a lot. Your girlfriend's Rh negative. So something that's really interesting. You should ask your girl friend if she has any problem around electronics. One of the things that I've noticed in the handful of people that are Rh negative is them and electronics don't always work well together. Not that they don't know about electronics, but like they break or malfunction more often around them. That's something that I've noticed. I've also noticed that Rh negative folks have a higher pain tolerance. And what we're talking about is stuff that I've also documented and looked into that other people have talked about. Supposedly, if you're into this kind of stuff, Rh negative people are more sensitive to woo-woo. So they're more sensitive to spirits, the way cosmic energy works. So that would be karma or positive, negative vibes off of people. Rh negative people usually don't get sick as often, though when they do get sick, they usually get really, really sick, but they also usually have a better immune system. And these are just absolutely stereotypes, and I'm just always interested in finding what folks that are Rh negative, what people might think about that. So I also one day I'm going to do, I want to get the test to see if I actually carry the negative gene, because even though I'm A positive, it is still possible to carry the recessive marker. Not that it ever really matters, it's just something I'm kind of interested in. Okay. See, that's intriguing, and that's absolutely awesome that she lived off grid for 7 years. That's cool. See, there's so many subject change, just so you know. There's so many of us out here and so many of you guys out there that I think I could learn a lot from as well, that I really need to get together, and we need to have a get together. She's a Reiki master. Okay. Everything that you're saying is just adding right on to the Rh negative aspect that is super intriguing to me. So there is something about Rh negative folks that I want to know more about. That I really want to know why they get drawn to things of that sort. That is so intriguing to me. That's so cool. Reiki. Um, I've always wanted to learn Reiki. I think it makes sense in the way my mind works now. Years ago, I don't think I would have understood Reiki, but after practicing Zen Buddhist for a while and really just learning how to meditate and learning all of the aspects, I would say I'm at nirvana right now. I'm at the breathe out stage because that's where I fall into it. Reiki seems to be something that I could really get into and dig, or at least like be around folks that practice Reiki. So, and that kind of, and I'm gonna call that woo woo because there's not hard science that proves that the stuff with Reiki, but to anybody that's ever experienced Reiki, you absolutely understand how it works and you understand the importance of it. So the the woo-woo science part of Reiki just intrigues me a whole lot. So yeah, that is so cool. You guys don't live anywhere near Southern West Virginia, do you? You guys should come over and visit, and we could have some great conversations, and we could trade some knowledge. So yeah, this was my chat today was different. It's been a crazy day. Last night, some lightning struck just outside of my house, knocked my internet out, blew up my modem. I had to go find a backup modem. Spent most of the morning getting the internet working again. And then came out here and was working on this. And it's weird outside because it's like a rainy, foggy, but it feels weird, but not so weird that's giving me a headache. And I always fight this concept of trying to be logically thinking and the feeling. I tell people if you follow the Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENFP. Yeah, I'm an ENFP. But that F, I'm really an FT there. So I kind of fall into both the thinker and the feeler. So you're not too far away. That's awesome. Well, maybe if you guys can't make it all out this way, we can have a meetup someplace in between so we both don't have to travel that far and be gone for a couple hours and just meet up someplace and go for a hike or play in the woods, or I can teach you guys how to do some wildcrafting. We can go eat some cool stuff that grows up in the woods and such. So that would be fun. Back to what I was saying, because I'm very absent. Today is a very absent-minded day for me. I will add that into the mix. Don't know why. It's just kind of how today is. So yeah, so I forget where we're going. Trying to remember to feed everyone. I got everyone fed. Now I'm watering everyone. So I'm going to put you back up here for a second. I'm going to make sure I get everybody water, and then we can go back to our good conversation that we're having. And Coffin, if you end up coming back, we can continue us having our conversation. What I was saying was, if you'd like to have more of a one-on-one conversation in the future, I'd love to chat with you because you definitely have some ideas that I think I could learn a lot from. And I am always, always, always super interested in learning something new every day. Bear for all seasons, thank you so much for the lemon. And welcome to today's stream. I hope you are having a spectacular day. And if any of you follow, I know some of you follow the Lift the Veil, and if you follow the Ugly Jew, I'm really going to try, I think it's tomorrow, I believe, tomorrow evening. He's going to do the debate thing, and I'm going to try to help him teach you guys how to set up a Tron wallet. So, speaking of crypto, so if you're not following the Ugly Jew, make sure you do. Yeah, oh, rafting, yes. That would be super. Man, okay, now that would be actually a really fun. That would be really fun. Now, we probably couldn't get any in-depth, super crazy conversations, but we could have enough just when we're floating around on the river during the slow times. That would be really fun. Yeah, I would be game on that. because rafting is a blast. Actually, canoeing parts of the river, or canoeing parts of the Greenbrier, which isn't very far away. The Greenbrier is really fun to raft. We could always raft the Tusk. I mean the Tug. That's over about a county over. So lots of kayaking, rafting, canoeing, depending on how intense or how much you want to float. That'd all be really fun. One year in the near future. It won't be this year because I just can't plan it in time, and I need an intern to take over stuff for me. But one year in the very near future, I'd like to add a little get-together where we all go down to Savannah. And the reason I want to go to Savannah is there's a lot of stuff I can teach folks about Savannah, since it's one of the oldest cities left on the East Coast. And there's lots of cool things there's folks that practice voodoo down there, to there's pre-mud flood things, to you've got a lot of nature and the Spanish moss and how those two things coexist together. And then there's also how the people came together in a small community to make sure that Sherman did not burn down Savannah. That's actually why Savannah's still alive, or still around as a city, because it was not actually destroyed. And so there's a whole lot. And the layout of the city is actually laid out for a particular idea of community building. That's why there's little parks everywhere. And so Savannah is a really good example of how to design a small town and how to talk about all the craziness of the weird stuff that I like to talk about. So downtown Savannah is one of the few places that I consider almost a perfect city, and I'm not a city folk. So anyways, I mean, that's, I know, different than talking about rafting, but since you made me think of it, I like to mention stuff, because then when I look back and review this kind of stuff later on, I can remind myself that that was what was on my mind. So just so you know, guys, I actually use you guys when we talk about this. I use you guys as a mental checklist, so I can go back and review this, and I can see the cool stuff I talk about, and I can be like, oh yeah, that was intriguing. So you guys are like a post-it note that I digitally put on the internet so I can review. So you guys help me immensely every day. Whew. So I think I'm going to set up a, sorry, subject change again. I think I'm going to set up a camera here in the bunny barn. I don't exactly know where I'm going to set it up yet. Hey man, thanks for the follow. I'm still trying to understand the Mixer thing, but I broadcast every day on Mixer as well. You're one of the, Mixer is one of the other stream services that I'm very intrigued in. I do most of my conversation and most of my awesome stuff over here on DLive, so if you're not on DLive yet, you should jump on over here. It's really fun. But if you're just going to stay there on Mixer, just be aware that I will be hanging out there a lot of times too, because I think it's a really interesting platform. And as a farmer, you learn very early, never put all of your eggs in one basket, because you will trip and they will break and then you won't have any eggs left. Or if you at least have 2 baskets, you're probably not going to trip twice. And that's farmer's logic there for you. So now you know. And as G.I. Joe always said, knowing is half the battle. Water, 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 water. I got to get some water to the guy outside. I don't know why my other camera's not working right there. I thought I got everything fixed good, but again, like I said, I'm using a backup modem, so my internet's probably running super slow. I'm going to blame that. So how about any of you that's out there in internet land? Do you have your theories on humans and subspecies, and if we're all one species, and the importance of race, and do you think it's just a bunch of crap and that we're all virtually the same because we all bleed red, or does anybody have something different? So I have 70 chickens. We'll go look at them in just a second. I have 70 chickens, about 80 ducks, 12 or 13 guineas. And here we're at right now, we're actually in the bunny barn, and I've got a bunch of bunnies in here. I think I've got roughly about 20, 25 bunnies. I have a 600-pound pig. I have 9 cats, 2 dogs, and a absolutely very large flock of parakeets that live in my house. So that is kind of the breakdown. I do homesteading and off-grid living, or attempting to do off-grid living. I also run a nonprofit where I teach people how to do from the very basics to growing tomatoes to we get together some experts and we teach you more in-depth stuff if we have folks that are that interested. Plus, if we get the more in-depth people. So, and if we get more, if I get more people that are super interested, then I can bring experts in talking about a variety of stuff. And then I get to learn some awesome stuff too. So, therefore, all that's cool. Thank you for listening while you're driving. I'm trying to, hopefully, I will make this entertaining enough for you to listen. But thank you so much. Yeah, I have a lot of different theories on a lot of different things, and my theories are usually based on some of my observations and such. And I'm feeding this bunny right now. As soon as I get this bunny fed, we're gonna head in for the new ones, the new followers today that would like to see the bunnies, or that would like to see the chickens, because this show is called Let's Feed the Chickens, and I get pointed out by my significant other on a regular basis. I don't have any parrots. I have parakeets, but we can go see them in just a minute when we head back to the house. It's a little too cold here for parrots, and parrots take a lot of work, but we'll head over in and see the chickens, which I think chickens are just as much fun. So here we are in these are mostly all the young Muscovy ducks. There's one of our fun little friendly roosters. We'll peek on in here at our Silkies. If anybody's interested in getting chickens, I would suggest starting off, unless you're going to leave them running around outside, but you really want to learn the personality of chickens, I would say Silkies. Those are both Silkies. Silkies are super friendly, super fluffy. They actually feel like you're touching stuffed animals. They are spectacular egg layers. But what their biggest trait is, they will incubate just about anything. So if you stick an egg under them, they will incubate it. Heck, if you stick a rock under them, they will do everything that they can to incubate you a rock. So that's why I think, what'd you say? In dirt bathing. And that is one of the reasons why I think that they're cool. Let me show you a couple of the egg sizes that we get. So these are small Muscovy eggs. Here is a bantam. These are one of the small bantam eggs to give you perspective on the size. And where'd you get this brown one from? Is this from the girls that run around? Oh, okay. So yeah. That's Queen Anne. She's and that wonderful sound you hear right there, that's a guinea. And those that have followed us in the past, why I tell people that guineas are the best guard animal, because that's actually fairly quiet for a guinea. Because guineas can be really loud, and they're the ones that tell you if there's a leaf that fell in your yard, or a neighbor, or a dog, or anything. The guineas will jump in and they will yell at you, and they will tell you something as crazy is going on. So. So I'll just give we'll do as we walk back to the house so I can show you guys the parakeets as well since that was requested. We'll just do a recap of what today's show was for those that have maybe missed the beginning of it. So what today I was talking about is how I believe that there is multiple subspecies of humans, or maybe even to the point of different species of humans. And I'm not necessarily drawing that on race lines, but I'm more drawing it on blood type lines. And the two species that it's easiest for me to believe is the next category that it falls into is folks with different types of blood type. Again, I can be convinced otherwise. This is just based on observation and a working theory and seeing things on how folks that are positive or negative blood types have to have, if they're going to have offspring and such, how they have to have shots and things of that sort. I'm also basing this off of folks that are mixed race or things of that sort, how sometimes it's harder for them to get the proper medical coverage and the medical care because they may carry a variety of different genes. And for when it comes to more in depth than just blood, when it comes to like bone marrow or certain vaccinations or things of that sort, it's a little bit more complicated and requires more in-depth research to make sure that that's all functioning, that they can do things the very best. And I'm talking about all this today, and I'm doing this not because I think it's important that we separate the different species of people and that we know that people are distinctly different, but with genetically mutations and with genetic modifications and with cloning and transhuman and designer babies and all of that kind of stuff, I think is important that we have these conversations, not necessarily for the moral reason, but just so we can actually understand things better. Because as we talk more about particular things and we figure out if these things that we're talking about have truth to them, or if we just don't have the technology to understand the differences yet. Having those conversations, having honest, real conversations, and figuring out what is best for people in general, I think is the key. Because we know the Chinese, and there's also going to be other places that don't have the same type of morals that other countries have. And so, being a realist, I think it's important that we talk about cloning and we talk about gene manipulation, and we talk about, transhumanism and embedding other genes, other technology, things at some particular point with CRISPR and with other things. We're going to put together genes that may not actually have ever existed in nature and are simply completely man-made. And with humans always enjoying the concept of playing God, and always wanting to figure out how they're going to do that, because there will always be humans that do that. It's important for us to be talking about this. So if we come across some crazy mutation in the future or something really bizarre happens, we've had this conversation, and we can have people going and looking into this in a balanced area. So, like, I'll give an example. I don't know what my opinion is on if you could get in there and you could genetically modify babies so that they could never get cancer. Would that be good or bad? I don't know. I see the value in doing something of that sort. But I also see the idea that if we manipulate things too much and we don't know what we're doing, we might be causing further harm. I also think that the idea of manipulating the genes of your baby so that they have a particular eye color that you desire, I think that is kind of silly, and I think that you're playing with fire because you don't know what other things that could possibly change, since we're very ignorant on epigenetics and regular genetics. So it's a really interesting thing. And the other thing is if we do have the ability to help folks that have a tough time having children. So if we have two people and we can do a genetic profile of them and we find out that this is the reason they're having a tough time having children, and we can, with our modern technology and with our science, we can help that without maybe manipulating the genes by just, looking at, maybe it's just simply a diet change, or maybe it's an environmental issue that's affecting um, all this kind of stuff. And we really get to the point where we can do a lot of good with this. So, or what if it's something that later on in life, maybe you don't manipulate the genes as a baby, but maybe we learn to do things so that we can cure cancer genetically. So maybe it's something that once you get cancer, we can go in and do some type of therapy, and that new type of therapy can, um, and we can get in there and we can fix things with that. So, it's really interesting. And so yeah, and we have manipulated most of our food, and some in a lot of good ways too. So some folks, they're really against genetic modification or genetic engineering, but as humans, we've technically been doing this for a long time. Now, I think that we should be very careful, and we need to make sure we preserve high quality seeds, and we need to make sure that we keep things so that if something that we're doing as fast as we're doing is manipulating things. But like, for example, corn didn't used to be what we recognize as corn today. It was a lot smaller, more like the size of like a baby corn or smaller. And every once in a while, when you're breeding a thing of corn or you're raising some corn, especially if you've got some heirloom seeds, you'll actually see that come out, and you'll get smaller ears of corn. We've also, also things like, broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower and um, not asparagus. I forget what they're called. They're all kind of in that same family, that over time we bred in and out genes that we wanted and genes that we thought. Now, it took us a whole lot longer back in the day, or maybe it didn't. Let's also be fair. I also believe in that we've went through at least 4 major reboots. So maybe we had this kind of awesome technology back in the day and we've just lost it. But let's just say that maybe we didn't, and maybe it was just millennia of properly breeding plants together so that we had awesome edible foods. So there is a lot of perks to being able to make sure that you have the best quality food that grows in the environment that's best suited for you. So there's a lot of awesomeness to this as well. And the way I believe things is, I believe that we were placed here by some type of creator. We will I've talked about it a few times, and maybe we'll talk about it again in the future, but I believe that everything that we need is here for us. The knowledge is here, and the supplies are here for us to solve, create, achieve spectacular awesomeness. And I say spectacular awesomeness to not pinpoint down any particular thing, because everybody has a unique skill that does something awesome with. And if everybody becomes spectacularly awesome at what they love to do or what they're really good at doing, the world would be pretty awesome, and a great place to live in and to raise kids in and to just be in. And that's where we need to get that. We're going to get there. We're getting there, guys. We're doing it. But that all being said, I think that everything is here, but some of that stuff may just be knowing how to combine the right two things together. And so some of the science could be vitally important to do all this. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. So if you're, I told you I was going to show you the parakeets. I forgot. I do that a lot. So let's go walk in so you can check out the parakeets. Since now I will warn you that the parakeets are loud, because for some reason parakeets pick up on Bluetooth as if they're, at a rock concert. But we will go check. We will go check them out. Like I said, I have a giant flock of parakeets, because parakeets, at least here, have lots of babies. So here is this group of our yellow parakeets. I think there's 7, 8 in there. There's 8 that live in there. Here are some parakeets in here. We've got a couple that are probably on eggs in there, and then a boy hanging out up there. And then we have these guys, which are the deconstructors, and probably they are. And they live in here. And these guys are really good at deconstructing this building that we gave them. We also have a fish aquarium that has a single fish in it right now, because We used to raise cories, and we just haven't found good stock of panda cories lately. And these are some of our plants. And this is the rest of our plants here in our main room. So we have I think last I checked, got some plants over here by our TV setup too. I think last I checked, I think we were at 150, 125 plants. So for those that are interested. And thank you so much for the lemon today. Oh, and all Elisa's artwork is up on the wall. Not that one right there, but everything else that is up on the wall, she drew because she is an artist. Right now we don't have any of her artwork online, but we occasionally put it up on our Etsy store. If anybody likes weird, fun things, practical stuff or art or things of that sort, you can check out our Etsy store, which is Mavis Hen X. That's our Etsy store, or her Etsy store, I should say, because I tried to make something once. They don't speak. One of the downfalls to having so many is they kind of keep their own thing. Though I will tell you a little secret with these. On my computer over here, one of the sounds that I have is every time someone leaves a message, it really lightly does the ICQ, the uh-oh sound. And a couple of the parakeets have learned to make that sound because they've heard it so often. So sometimes at night or sometimes just randomly, you'll hear the parakeets make that uh-oh sound. And that's what's funny. That's original. It's originally from the ICQ chatting thing back in the day, and I just really liked the sound, so I stuck it on the computer. But yeah, so the parakeets will pick up that. Parakeets can actually learn quite a few words. If you would really spend time with parakeets, they can learn almost as many as like parrots and crows and other things of that sort. We're just kind of lazy because we have a lot of animals on our farm. And so, oh, and there's Fernando, one of our cats. And so our parakeets don't necessarily know how to talk, just some random noises that they hear on a regular basis. So, well, friends, I think it is time for me to go today. It was wonderful chatting with you guys. I will be jumping around. Make sure that if you guys don't follow Lift the Veil, you check out Lift the Veil. Make sure you follow The Ugly Jew. If you have anybody else that you think we should follow, you think I should follow, or you think anybody part of the group should follow, make sure you just spam their DLive or their Mixer or their Twitch or anything there in the comment section below so that we all know on who the cool people are to follow and listen and such. And again, folks, I try to do this every day at 15:30 my time so that we can enjoy feeding the chickens together, and you guys can make my day a little bit more intriguing. I mean, not that feeding the chickens is boring, it's just kind of fun to add with other people. So I am glad that you enjoyed watching. I hope that you get to catch another stream in the near future. I also will occasionally, if you pay attention to the pop-ups and you pay attention to my descriptions, I will also occasionally do some walks up the mountain. And especially with the snow, once we get some more snow on the ground, I love walking up to the top of the mountain with the snow because it is just really fun. Well, anyways, friends, that is the recap for today. The Baron, Justin, Dr. Firefly, whatever you'd like to call me. You guys have yourself a wonderful rest of the day. Till tomorrow, adios.